Okay, I'm going to skip the solar flash part 2 for right now and come back to that in a couple of days with a card reading for you on the solar flash. Right now, I want to talk about something that has been on my mind for a very, very long time. And if you didn't think I was out there before, you probably are going to really think so after I communicate what my experience has been. So, David Wilcock is not the news that didn't make the news. I'm Tina, and I'm the news that didn't make the news. The subject matter at hand in this video is, are we now looking at the real David Wilcock? I'm going to go into a bit of a brief history about what I have experienced. I started following David in, 2014, I think, around that time of 2014. And I never bought his books because at the time I couldn't afford to, but any video on YouTube I have watched 30 times. I recognize the soul frequency. I also know that he is in the soul group where I am and where you are, where we all are. And I know that the majority of you are familiar with who he is, have experienced his information, and probably stopped watching him sometime within the last year. So that's what I want to talk about. I have been avoiding this video for a multitude of reasons. I'm not sure, one, how to go about the subject matter. I don't know if it's something that could get me in any kind of trouble in a third dimensional way, but initially I was more concerned with retaliation because I've been on the targeted side since about 2007. I moved out to LA, to North Hollywood in the last week, not the last week, close to the last week, on the winter solstice of 2016. So I got to LA on the 21st of December 2016. I was only there for a couple of days, and I was asked to get a message to David Wilcock. I laughed, of course, and I thought, well, I didn't just think, I said to the person that delivered this message, how do you think someone like me is going to get a message to David Wilcock? The answer to that was, he is also in LA, which was a surprise to me. I did not know when I moved to LA that is where he was living at the time. But again, I went right back to, how would I ever possibly be able to get a message to David Wilcock, like he's going to talk to me, Now, I had a friend on Facebook that I talked to for the very first time within 2 days of moving to LA. And she expressed to me that she also had a message that she was asked to get to David Wilcock. So we spent 3 hours outside in the parking lot of the place I was living because I didn't want to have this conversation in front of these people I didn't even know. I had just met the people I was living with 48 hours before this. So her and I had a conversation about us receiving a message for David Wilcock, both of us. And I told her what my message was, and she told me what her message was, and they were shockingly similar. Now, that was 2016. We are now in 2022. I have not talked to this person, her name is Stephanie, since that time that we talked in LA initially. We follow each other on social media, but we have not had any actual physical kind of conversations since that time. I did make an attempt to get the message to David Wilcock, and I'm not going to share what that was because I'm not sure that it's totally pertinent, and this could get really long, and I'm going to try to avoid that. But basically, it was a message about balancing out his energy and not getting pulled into things that could compromise the position of himself. And that was his spiritual position, his position of consciousness, also his position of safety in a 3D way. So, as I said, fruitless attempt to get a hold of David Wilcock. Now, Stephanie also had a fruitless attempt to get to David Wilcock as well. So, he was gone for a couple months, and when David was gone for a couple months and he came back, and I think it was October of 2018, and to my surprise, it wasn't an article, it was the marriage spread, the pictures, wedding photos, things like that, with a short article saying, I got married to Elizabeth, sorry, I don't know her last name. I was really weirded out about this, and I mean really weirded out, which was like a double weird out because like why am I weirded out about somebody getting married? Am I jealous? I mean, it was just bizarre. Okay, so I was going to my friend Lynn's house that day, and when I got there, I said, David Wilcock got married, and there's this article, and she said, yeah, I know, it's really, really weird. And I said, I don't understand why I'm having this like really bad reaction to him getting married. And she said, let me ask you something. Let's pretend for a second that he didn't marry Elizabeth. Let's pretend he married Laura Eisenhower. And every cell in my body just relaxed. And she said, it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that he got married. It has to do with the fact that he got married to her. Now, I had never heard of handlers, anything like that. A lot of you guys have heard about the whole handler scenario. But I've never known anybody that was influential enough or out in the public enough in an influential way or I just never known anybody at all that had a handler. I'd never heard that term. I didn't understand what that was about, but on an energetic level, I knew what was about to go down. Because he married her, I tried to get myself to watch one of the talks he did, one of the expos that he did. I think it was with Corey Good. And after the expo, he announced his wife, and she came out and she gave a talk. And I tried to get myself to listen, but I couldn't pin it. One, didn't like the vibration, but the other really weird thing was the vibration didn't match David. So in my mind, I was like, okay, well, why would you marry someone that the vibration didn't match? To me, this was all just, I was trying to figure out energetically what is wrong with this picture. Like it kind of scrambled my energy read on him, on her, what was going on with this. Now, in a 3D perspective, my concern was, as a writer, as someone who, like I said, I've watched all his videos 30, 40 times probably each one, because there's so much valuable information, and he's such a good teacher for things that I had no comprehension of, quantum physics, ancient text, all these things that he is able to make palatable for someone even basically at a third grade level. And that was initially the reason I started following it. It was like there was so much wonderful information to get caught up on that he delivered, because he was talking about such a well-rounded verse of topics. Not only that, he was able to connect all of those topics together in a way that was super, super palatable for me to not only comprehend, but go, oh my God. So the biggest thing about me listening to his information was he explained the science, the math, and the geometry and the history behind all the things that I knew deep within my soul that I just knew, but there was no way I could ever verbally explain to you how I knew those things. So that was my fascination with that information. So if you've been psychic for 30 years and you know all these things, and then here comes this person that's like, okay, well, this, and all these things are true, and let me give you the science. Let me give you the math. Let me give you the geometry. Let me give you the ancient history to confirm what you already know deep within your soul. So, like I said, probably 6 years of watching, learning every single thing that I could from him. When he got married, energetically, the energy went into a different direction. And I don't mean as far as the relationship or the love aspect. I mean, as far as the focus itself. So the main thing I noticed initially, right initially, was that he wasn't writing articles anymore. And I really liked reading his articles, more than any other format. So that was gone. So I was a little bit disappointed. And, I kind of kept trying to pinpoint this back on myself and saying, you're just being overly sensitive or whatever. But my being overly sensitive is what brings me my knowledge, my conscious awareness of what is going on in the world outside of me, despite the fact that the truth may not always be there to confront me. I did continue to read his articles, watch his videos after he got married. And initially, it wasn't a big issue for me. But I will tell you that some very strange things started to happen. And if you guys have followed him, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's the same reason you stopped watching him as well as I did. I want to preface this by saying I have only intentionally remote viewed a person or a person's situation twice in my lifetime. And both of those times were when I thought somebody was in real and extreme danger. So as you guys know, and I don't have an exact timeline, unfortunately, I don't write down every single thing I receive on some days, because right now I'm spending at least half of my day writing, between doing medical intuitive stuff, doing tarot card readings, writing in my journal, and my video book. I've spent half of my days writing right now. So I don't remember the exact time, but here's what I want to tell you. The whole GameStop thing happened, right? And I was like on the edge of my seat, because I knew that David Wilcock was going to be like right there. Like, this is literally the biggest thing that has happened in such a long time on this planet, not just because it involves stock or economics. I'll get into that in a second. The reason why this was such a big deal was because of the message that was being sent out to the people that were in the past controlling this planet. Somebody messaged me shortly after the GameStop thing, within about a week of that, and said, why would they pick GameStop of all places? It's not like it was, an expansive stock. It's not like there's any real kind of logic around it. And I thought, why in the world is this person asking me about the stock market or about economics or about GameStop? I don't know anything about. And right there in mid-sentence, I heard clear as day, it's a message to the elite to stop the game. And I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. So the message was stop the game, stop the financial gain, right? Stop the financial game, not gain. So David didn't write about it. 3 days later, David didn't write about it. A week later, he didn't write about it. 3 weeks, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks into the GameStop ordeal, and David had still not written about it. I've told you guys this before. I'm not trained in remote viewing, and had only done it intentionally one other time, and that had been decades ago. So 2-3 weeks when he had not written about it, I used my remote viewing ability to check on his safety. Now, I will tell you, when we see things, doesn't mean it's exactly the way it is. It means it's presented to you in a way that your consciousness can understand it, okay? But when I went to remote view him, here's what I saw, and to me, this was terrifying. I saw him in a room, maybe 8 by 10, concrete floor, no window, no water, no books, no nothing, just a single bed, not even a blanket. So he had a mattress and he was in like 8 by 8, 8 by 10 room. And I thought, oh my God, what's going on? Now keep in mind, I stopped studying cabal related geopolitics, all of that stuff, probably about 2 years ago. I had no idea that someone's consciousness could be captured. I mean, I know that we can be targeted, we can be messed with. I get it, I understand it, I've experienced it firsthand. But I didn't know that they could physically trap someone, but yet use their consciousness to, again, you're going to have to forgive my ignorance on this. I don't know if they were presenting him in a way that was a holographic technology that I was seeing, or was he physically captured and they had captured his consciousness as well as his physical body. And so I didn't know when I saw him, did they only capture his consciousness and they were controlling his consciousness, or was he physically held captive and what we were seeing was like a clone or holographic image or something? Again, I haven't studied this, didn't know any of this stuff was possible. Now, when I knew that, one, there was an issue with the safety, but two, that the whole point of GameStop was to stop the game, I knew immediately that David Wilcock also knew that this was a message to the elite about stopping the financial gain, okay? I knew if he knew, I knew. And I could go into many stories, but I'm going to skip it and tell you this. Prior to this happening in 2015, David Wilcock received some kind of intel from Corey Good and about the blue avians and what was going on with the position of the earth, and it was being held in this certain space, and why was it being held here, and all of this stuff. Now, I saw it as a vision, and I got the message directly from the blue avians. And the message was about Earth being held in a place and not going back to its rightful home because there would be too much of a loss of life, so they were postponing it. That's the gist of the message. I sat there on the floor for a very long time trying to figure out if I actually had the balls to call someone and tell them what I had seen. I did decide to reach out to my friend Herman and tell him all the information that I received from the blue avians. When I told him, I mean, to him, it wasn't like any big deal. I'd been already telling him crazy stuff anyway. So he was a really good person for me to be able to bounce things off of, because there was almost no judgment in the man's body. So it worked out perfectly. Now, the reason I was glad I did this was because at that time, whenever a David Wilcock article came out, Herman and I would take turns reading each other the David Wilcock article. So about 2 or 3 weeks after my vision and messages from the blue avians, Herman had called me, sent me the article, and I started reading it to him. And I said, oh my God, this is the exact same information I got from the blue avians. So long story short, I had a realization that somehow, I don't know if it's just because of the soul group, and I don't know that it matters, but energetically, if he was receiving intel, somehow I was tapping into it. Now, I wasn't doing this every day. I wasn't doing it all the time. But when he got significant data dumps, I got parts of that data dump at the same time. Now, the only reason I know is like when I get information, I normally don't get information at 3 o'clock, turn around and make a video at 4 o'clock. Now, David Wilcock is obviously more professional, has 500,000 followers and all that other stuff. So when he gets information, he sits on it, goes back to his other information that he has previously, connects the dots, whatever, decides whatever, how he's going to do that, how he's going to present it, all of that. So his turnaround time, I'll say normally, if it's something he feels he can release initially, is usually 2 to 4 weeks. Of course, there's exceptions to that, but that is how I realized that I was somehow able to tap into insider information that he was receiving. So again, the stop the game thing, 3 weeks later, he still hadn't written about it. I would have thought that would have been like the career article for him, just knowing and reading everything else, all the other articles, watching all the other videos. It was something that was like the chance of a lifetime to write about. So after I saw that he had been captured, and I kind of knew it for a while. I kind of feel like it wasn't him, and I was kind of like trying to get myself to still watch his videos anyway, even though I knew something was wrong, I knew something was off. I was still trying to keep myself to keep up with it. But what I noticed was, even when I put his videos on and like tried to, listen to it, I was distracted. I couldn't pay attention. I didn't want to listen, whatever. Everything in my body was kicking me out of that information, knowing that there was something really wrong and that there was something really off. So I just said, I'm not going to watch the videos anymore. Well, my boyfriend at the time, Ron, wanted to move the TV that had the YouTube capability into the bedroom so that we could watch David's live shows from the TV instead of watching it on the laptop, which had horrible sound and all kinds of stuff. So when we started to watch the videos in the bedroom, not on a bigger screen, not only did I know for sure that it wasn't him, he was either physically captured and this was a holographic projection or clone or whatever. Hopefully I can't get sued for saying any of this stuff. Anyway, I didn't know what the deal was. When we pulled the TV into the bedroom, I laid down and I'm watching him. And as I'm watching him, he's making eye contact with me. And he stepped out of my television screen and put himself in the garbage can in my bedroom. Now, in reality, I don't have a garbage can in my bedroom. The point was his consciousness at minimum was captured. He was aware of it and he knew what was coming out of his mouth at that point was garbage. So I start talking to Ron saying, oh my gosh, he just came out of the TV and all this other stuff. And I started explaining to him what I was seeing and that I felt like he'd been captured and all this. When I started telling Ron this, YouTube started to malfunction. David started to get blurry. Static took over the television screen, and then it shut down all the static, shut the TV down that we were watching. And then when it came back up, like, I don't know, maybe a minute or two later, his lips were moving at a different time than the voice was coming out. So the TV became out of sync energetically with David Wilcock himself, what he was saying. So we thought it was just the video, and then Ron said to me, I think it's because you're talking about it, you're somehow drawing attention to it, and my energy was like fuzzing out the TV. So he had to turn off the TV and look up on the laptop how to reset the audio so that the audio was coming out at the same time he was speaking. It was actually matching up with his facial expressions, his words, etc. We had to reset everything. Now, this exchange that I had through the television with this information shorted the television out. So when it wasn't working, we decided to put an Ancient Aliens DVD in and see if it was just the YouTube function. Same thing happened on Ancient Aliens. It messed up the sound, it messed up the picture quality, everything. So we had to look it up, and we ended up having to reset the DVD player and reset the TV as well to get it back to normal. Now, I completely stopped watching David Wilcock after that point because of all the things that I've already said in the first 25 minutes of this video. I'm not saying this to bash on David. I'm not saying this to bash on Elizabeth. I'm not saying this to bash on anything. I just knew that there was an energy that was really off, and I couldn't figure out, especially in our soul group, we know what a matching energy is. We know when we talk to people whether that relationship, that communication is something that works for us. So I couldn't figure out how this could happen, okay, to begin with. Yeah, very, very strange. And like I said, hopefully I'm not going to be, I am a little bit concerned, safety reasons, and I'll tell you why. The girl Stephanie that I had a conversation with in 2016 that was given a message to give David Wilcock, same time I was given a message to give to him, same week. We talked about it. Neither one of us were ever successful in getting our message through. She reached out to me about 5 or 6 weeks ago, approximately. Her and another girl, we had a 3-way conversation, video conversation on Messenger. All 3 of us were avid watchers, avid followers, avid readers of David Wilcock's work, and had been for a very long time. We had the discussion, and I started telling those 2 girls the same thing that I am telling you now. When I told them, they also felt like something was off, and that some scenario, like I'm saying, had actually happened to him, and they wanted to know what to do about it. Now, they volunteered, the 2 of them came together and volunteered me to be the one to go speak to him energetically, telepathically, however you would like to look at that. To try to get him out of this. And I said, I am not going to do anything of the such without taking a walking meditation. Let me go meditate on it. I'll walk 8 miles. I'll come back. I'll call you guys. We'll have another 3-way chat, and I'll tell you what we're going to do. When I went to take a walk, I asked, first of all, how do I approach David Wilcock? Now, you're thinking probably, well, it's not 3D, just go to him telepathically. But again, there was a safety concern, not just for myself, but also for him as well. I don't want to ever put anybody's safety in jeopardy, obviously. When I went out to take a walk and I asked how to approach David Wilcock energetically, the first thing I heard was, "You're on black ice." And I'm like, black ice, what does that mean? And they said, very dangerous, unseen danger here, black ice, very dangerous, and you don't see it coming. So I spent the next 8 miles trying to figure out exactly how, and I was going to have this conversation with him. So what I was told to do was go to him and offer him a choice. So I went to him, and I'll give you the short version of what I said. I said, "My name is Tina. I've reached out to you a couple times, both in 3D and both telepathically, when you've been in danger. The reason why I'm here right now is I am aware of what has happened to you, and I want you to know that you are a child of God, you have a connection to source, that you can undo this, you can free yourself, you can go back to the sovereignty that you've had for your entire life. You can do this and you can get out of this yourself. That was the only way, because I mean, knowing what I've just discussed with you, I was really struggling to how was I going to actually approach this. The other thing I said to him is, David, if you have figured this out, then I know you've also figured this out, because he wrote a book about him being the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. Now, I've watched his video on it, but I've never read his book on it, so I don't know extensively about it, and I don't need to. What I do know is this, and this was, I want to say 1929, but don't quote me on that. So, Edgar Casey had been doing remote healing just by getting people's names and addresses. He'd been doing this for a really long time. He had done hundreds, if not thousands, of these readings on how to heal people. What I told David Wilcock is, and I'm sure this was probably in his book, like I said, I haven't read it, was please remember that this also happened to Edgar Casey in the 20s, and that Edgar Casey was compromised, and he'd always been, getting help or getting, cosmic assistance, angelic assistance, whatever you want to call it, in his readings and his healings and things. But he became obsessed with the people that were hating on him. Now, think about it. In that day, when you're talking about hating on someone, you're talking about writing an article in the newspaper or mailing a letter to someone. We didn't have social media where it was instant. But Edgar Casey got so involved with trying to discredit the haters and paying attention to the haters that it dropped his frequency down to the point where he could be compromised. And I said, David, if I had figured this out and made the connection between the compromise between Edgar Casey and what's going on with you right now, I know that you also have had to have made this connection by this point. No response. It was kind of like a remote viewing conversation. I went there to talk. I went there to tell him he was a child of God. I was a person from his soul group, and I just was there with two of my friends. We just wanted him to know that it doesn't have to be this way. He can come back to being himself. Now, the very interesting part about this is, you guys know, he went through a divorce. And again, I think I don't feel like I even need to say this, but I'm not saying this to talk about his personal life. I'm saying this because the only way that I actually made a comment on one of his videos in the live feed about something about divorce, and I got attacked by all kinds of people for being, oh, you're just talking about rumors and whatever. And so I kind of just dropped out of it. But basically, I had signed up for Elizabeth Wilcock's newsletter. The only reason that I did that was because they were doing stuff together. I never read any of the stuff from the newsletter. But I got a newsletter from her through an email, and it was talking about her divorce and her renaming ceremony and all this really out there stuff. As I say that's out there stuff, as I'm talking about out there stuff. But anyway, it was just this whole, it wasn't about sadness or grief or loss or whatever. It's just all about David and I are getting divorced, and I'm having a ceremony to rename myself. And then she went into the history of her name and all kinds of other stuff. And I'm just sitting here going, oh my God. I mean, I knew it was coming. You guys know I did the collective card reading, and I talked about divorce going through our soul group. Again, I'm talking about this because he's a close connector. He is on the same wave that we are. He's connected to the same people we are. He may be famous and have different kinds of connections, but etherically and energetically, we are all connected on this soul wave experience. Now, again, I tell you, I didn't know about handlers or things like that until one of my friends asked me if I thought that, Elizabeth was his handler. That was kind of like the first. Again, energetically, I get it. I've never heard the word or the phrase or whatever. There are a ton of people in our soul group that are being handled. That's something I want you to know. Do you need to be in fear? No. But do you need to compromise yourself? Okay, so, and when I say compromise yourself, I don't mean having an occasional drink or, okay, here's what I mean by this. If you are a person that is running a Twitter channel about veganism, the benefits of veganism, okay? They cannot do anything to you. They cannot, you cannot be targeted on something that is in alignment with what you're doing, okay? And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be telling people that it's awesome to eat steak 24/7. If you're eating steak 24/7, go for it. But if you're living a life different from the one that you're putting out as a facade, that's when you open your energetic field to these kinds of really serious attacks. So, if you're running a vegan television show and eating hamburgers, you're leaving yourself open for attack. So all this means is we need to be in our authenticity. And I've been speaking about this a lot. So yes, they can still mess with people, okay, but not so much firsthand. If you're being messed with at this point, they are messing with you through other people. Now, I have had a couple people just since I started making videos and writing articles that were intentionally sent in here to take me off my path. Okay, so why I'm talking about David Wilcock, why I'm talking about the divorce, why I'm talking about handlers and those type of situations, why I'm talking about this is because all of this right now is about stopping the game of inauthenticity. Okay. I knew, and it wasn't until after someone was talking about the whole handler situation with me, my friend brought it up to me, and we were messaging back and forth about this stuff. I didn't know, again, I didn't know that term, but I had a dream probably about 3 months ago that David and Elizabeth were outside. They were setting up for some kind of outside venue. There's a bunch of metal stuff hanging around. And there weren't that many people there. David and Elizabeth were there early, and I was walking around and I saw David and Elizabeth. So I walked up to David, maybe 30 feet away from him, and I started talking to him about stuff. When I started talking to David, Elizabeth went into a control booth that looked, again, you'll have to keep in mind, this is symbology, and this is in ways that are easy to understand. So having that being said, she was in this like little room like they would have like in an amusement park. You know how someone's in like a little plexiglass room, they're running the ride, but there's plexiglass around them so that they don't get interference. People aren't talking to them while they're trying to run the ride. Stuff's not blowing into the ride. They can get stuck in the gears, that kind of stuff. So I'm having a conversation with David Wilcock, and a few minutes into the conversation, we both start leaning on this metal thing that was being put up. It's part of the stage, but we were both leaning against this metal thing. When we both kind of like sat on the ledge of it to talk, just to take a rest from standing, I saw Elizabeth flip a gear in this box. And next thing I know, and again, this thing was not fully assembled, the pieces that David and I were sitting on were being lifted up in the air. And I was screaming at David, I'm terrified of heights. I'm terrified of heights. And I am terrified of heights, guys. Make her put it down. Make her stop. Make Elizabeth stop. Make her stop controlling it. Make her stop. Make her stop. Make her stop. And somebody ran in from the right side of the dream towards the left side of the dream. They ran in from the right side of the dream to the left side of the dream, the receiving side, the female side, the Elizabeth side. And they ran so fast, I didn't even see who it was. And they pushed Elizabeth out of the control box and put this metal mechanism back on the ground so that David and I could get off of it. Now, essentially, we ended up holding on to it while we were up in the air, holding on for it and waiting and hoping that someone was going to set this thing back down on the ground, right? So this apparatus sits itself back down on the ground, and I'm totally fine. I was able to hold on to it. But David fell and hit the ground, and Elizabeth had pushed out of the way, and whoever stopped Elizabeth and turned this thing off also was gone. So we were left with nobody but David and I. David was directly in front of me. He was laying on the ground, and I went over to him. We're probably about the same size, and I just kind of helped him get back off the ground, right? And he was like, "Oh, thank you." And when I got right up into his face, I said, "Oh my God." I looked into his eyes and I said, "You're not David Wilcock." And when I said that to him, he put his hands around my neck and started to strangle me. That is when I woke up. The point of this information and the point of this story is the biggest reason to be authentic is so that you can be on your path without any hindrance. Because when we are on our mission, we are on our path, that's when we magnetize love, that's when we magnetize money, that's when we do all of it, okay? Now, I know that you guys know that, so I'm going to take this one step further. The reason I'm telling you this is when you get to that point, and if they cannot get to you specifically, they will work through other people around you. And that's where that term handling comes from. And again, I'm not telling you to feel like you're in danger. I'm not saying that at all. It's mostly about manipulating your emotions. They will send people into your life to manipulate your emotions and play with you. And the way that person attempts to manipulate you or attempts to drag you off your path depends on what your weakness is, okay? This is the only reason I'm telling you. For me, my weakness has revolved around the stuff that pertains to the twin flame soulmate information that I'm putting out if you guys have been following me for a while, you know I'm hesitant. I don't particularly enjoy doing that. And higher self has been talking to me about doing that, and I've been doing it off and on for 3 years, but I get inundated with a lot of things that I can't handle when it comes to that particular subject. So how they will try to distract me is to send someone in to be my cheerleader or pretend to be in love with me or pretend to want to meet me or whatever. So I'm telling you that, but it won't happen to that degree. Like nothing will come of it. Okay. I'll say, okay, this is painful. This hurt me. This situation wasn't true. It was meant to drag me from my path. But no matter what, I'm still here. I'm still doing it. No matter who they send in here to pretend whatever scenario they want to pretend to drag me off my path, I'm not going anywhere. And the only reason that I tell you, and I've been sitting on this for 8 months, maybe longer, not wanting to do it because I'm not trying to make a character assassination on David Wilcock. Elizabeth is a different story. And even her, I'm not, okay? But we all knew something was not an energetic match in the marriage. That's the most polite way that we can look at it. I'm just saying, when you allow yourself to be compromised and you lose your transparency, and whether that's for a person, a romantic relationship that shows up in your life, whether it's about money, it doesn't matter what it is. And again, I'm not telling you to be fearful. This is not a matter of life and death. I'm just telling you, we are so close to flipping this entire script right now that is the reason for the distractions. And, I'm just saying it's another reason to really be transparent and to be honest. And I'm not even saying that you're not being dishonest, or that I'm not being dishonest. But let's say I've been talking about this for a couple months now, being in alignment with what your soul wants. If you want a life, okay, say you want a life in California with a certain person, and you want to be a writer. Okay, let's use that for example. Well, if you move to Alaska, ignore the person that you love and never write anything, that leaves an opening in your energy field because you're not living up to your energetic potential. And I hope that makes sense. And that doesn't mean, again, that something negative is going to happen if you're not on your path. It's all about being who you really are in this moment right now. It's not to say if you don't know what your mission is right now, that leaves a space in energetic. I'm only talking about when you specifically know at a soul level and a heart level what you should be doing, where you should be living, who you should be with, what you should be doing for a living, and you're doing the opposite. You are leaving yourself open for control and manipulation on an extreme level. Otherwise, like I said, if you're just a person on that path, following that dream, following what lights your heart up, they will not be able to get to you directly, and they will send people into you. Now, I will tell you, this is the reason, and you guys probably know this from dealing with me for a while. When I see someone's name come through Messenger, it is a red flag across the board. If it's a man, this has been going on for the past year. That has been their way to get with me. That has been the way to kind of like energetically get into me, into my field. So now, not only not posting or interacting with anything on Facebook except for to share my YouTube videos. If I even get a friend request from a man, I immediately delete it, because you would not believe the insanity of how many messages from men. And I will tell you, there's a pattern to this, because when you first start on your mission, you're dipping into it, right? You're working another job and doing your dream thing on the side. Okay. So when I started dipping into it initially, that's when I started having these issues. And every time it was by a man being sent through to me in Messenger. Okay. And they'll show up anyway. They'll show up and want a reading. They'll show up and praise your videos. They'll, whatever it is. So I'm just saying, there's a million reasons for us to be our true, authentic self and be on the true, authentic star path, following our dreams and following our hearts. And the more you get into alignment with the soul path, the more free, the more sovereign, the more loving, the more financially abundant, the more healthy, everything comes through that channel. So again, I'm not here to talk bad about anybody, myself, you, David Wilcock, anyone. I'm telling you what can happen if you compromise your energy field. I will tell you, and one of the reasons I named this video is this now the real David Wilcock, is because of this. A day, I believe it was the next day, but I can't remember the date, or 2 days after, the three of us went to him and I spoke to him about Edgar Cayce and the past pattern, and letting him know that there's another choice, that you can easily get yourself out of this. The next day he came back and made a video after not making videos for months and months and months, guys. And several of my friends all reached out to me and sent me pictures of him and said they were really concerned and that the divorce destroyed him and all this other stuff. And I said, okay, stop looking at the fact that he refused to get a haircut or shave or whatever 3D thing you're looking at, because all three of these people were looking at his hair and whatever. And I said, listen, I know you may think that a divorce may be devastating, but that's your projection onto him. That doesn't mean that's him, because it doesn't matter what he looks like. I close my eyes and listen to him, and that is the first time I've experienced David Wilcock being in his real, authentic energy since sometime around 2018. So I know that he's back, and I've seen, I don't read anything or watch anything about it, but I've seen, I run into people talking about, is this really David Wilcock, whatever. I know it's been running through a lot of people's minds. That's why I'm sharing this information with you. And also is to say, we're here in support of each other, whether someone's getting married, getting divorced, whatever it is. When someone needs help, when you know that, I don't know David Wilcock, obviously, but I recognize the frequency of everyone in our soul group. I can meet someone or talk to someone and initially know that person is in our soul group. So I wanted to reach out to him to assist him as, as a sister in the soul group. And that is my reason for making this video, because as you know, I always say, I don't know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I only give you a piece of it. I've been very connected to him for many, many years. I remote viewed him twice when I thought he was in danger, and then I went to him to kind of give him a little bit of an energetic pep talk so he could get out of it and return to the David Wilcock that we all know and love. And when I closed my eyes and felt the energy, despite what all of my 3 friends that had messaged me with grave concern for him, I said, stop looking at his hair. Don't look at maybe the fact that he's not wearing makeup for the first time in years. And just realize, to me, he was finally back to him. He was finally relaxed. He was finally back in the energy of David Wilcock. And that is the reason for making this video for you. Keep your energy clear. Be really transparent. And it doesn't matter what you are or what you like or what you want to do, as long as you are being in alignment, being honest and open and transparent with yourself is the first step. Don't stay in things that aren't beautiful. Don't walk in directions that are not beautiful. All right. I love you. Thank you so much for being here. I see Kathy, I see James. I'm sorry, I don't look at the comments, and they've been coming and going. And every time I say going, they drop back off. But I've been on here already pretty long anyway. I love you. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting David Wilcock and everybody in our soul group. It's so, so, so important that we reach out, that we are energetically there for people in our soul group, that we are supportive. And we should be supportive of everybody anyway, but our soul group needs, the first wave needs much more support than the average bear right now. I love you. Bye.